So what we want to cover here is this criminal mindset thing. So folks, there's a lot of stuff and I want to cover it here and basically show you how to use the membership site and get all the cool stuff that we have here and actually answer the question. So I posted up a survey, all right, about what people wanted to learn. And actually, Doc wrote in on the survey, he said, well, what about being able to teach guys how you can bring up a bad topic or a poor topic, like you say that your criminal buddies get laid all the time? How can you do that and still get a good result with people, with women, with all these different things? And man, I'm just gonna say this: I got so fired up on the last one, I had to change shirts because it's drenched in sweat. So been a good call, been a good Wednesday night call. If you're on TSL Online, you know. So basically, what I want to do is I want to take you to this membership site here, and on the membership site, this is where you do the monthly charge. There's courses, right? And there's challenges and social dynamics courses and soon to be more courses added. But there's these two courses that are super important that are going to help you out to understand this. All right. So basically there's the instant connection course. It's a 4-part video e-course, and there's Formula 69. What we're going to actually look at is the instant connection course. So let's actually go to where that is. And there's 4 videos. And it's super cool because if you click on here, you can download the slides. And the first video that you want to watch is not that one, not the Make the Connection one. That's the second video that is also really cool stuff that will help you with this. Or I'm sorry, I totally messed up. That is the one you want, but is the second video here, the Making the Connection. Now you want to watch the full course because why not? You know, why not? There's 4 videos. They're there for a reason. They kind of set each other up, and they're broken down in a very simple way, whereas Formula 69 gets a little bit more detailed, definitely more complex. And the Formula 69 is definitely like everybody should go through that before they do TSL Online, not because you're going to do it. I know most of the people that get this, you don't do it, all right, because you're not being coached on it, but just so you can kind of get the depth of what we do, because when you get in TSL Online, it goes fucking crazy, right? But in this one, the instant connection course, you're going to learn how to meet women, okay? And you're going to learn how to meet women in a way which is very normal. There's not a lot of pressure, and it very simply broken down, okay? And like I said, not a lot of people have downloaded this, a lot of people have viewed it, a lot of people have watched it, but not a lot of people have really applied it because they don't know how, and I want to change that. But here in this connection course, right, this is where we actually answer that question of how you can start bringing up bad topics that you have a bad past. In fact, how this actually got brought up was that if you're like an ex-con, if you have STDs, if you're going through a bad divorce, if you're broke, if you're unemployed, if you just got the shit kicked out of you, whatever it is, how can you? Why would a woman want to have sex with you? And the fact of the matter is that it happens a lot. It doesn't happen with every guy who's an ex-con, hands down. All right. It happens with a few in a very small percentage, but those guys do so much better. They actually do way better than any pickup guy that I know. I mean, they're just like, they fucking slay. They're so good. And man, I know so many of them. It's crazy. It's crazy. Or guys that get out of rehab that I know, and they were in like a prison rehab. Like they got to live out the rest of their prison sentence for a year in a rehab where it also sucks. And a lot of them say that like they just want to get out and go back to prison. But yeah, man, they'll get out of there and they will fucking do really well with women. So why and how does this happen? Before we get into the instant connection course and all that it has to offer, and we're just going to we're not going to get into the video because that would just be too complex on this call, but we'll get into some of the conversational stuff. But the main thing is that these guys have a sense of pride. Not only do they have a sense of pride, and we've been talking about that on the call, and partially the reason why I sweat so much on the last recording is that they have a sense of pride and they're willing to be honest. So check this out. If you're running from your problems, and you're going to run from your problems if you don't know how to communicate them, right? Because you're unequipped. Like if you just lost your job, if you're divorced, if you do have an STD or something like that, you don't know how to talk about it. So it's much better to lie about it, not bring it up, fear it, all these different things. But if you know how to communicate it, man, it is like the best thing in the world. And one of the things that I would see these guys do that were just great with women, and all women, I mean, they'd be fucking their lawyer. It was crazy, man. And don't get me wrong, you know, those people probably had some issues too. The women did too, but it was across the board the types of women they got. You know, I mean, here's the other thing too, is these guys, like if they had the ability to get a trashy woman, they'd be like, why would I want that? Because it's all the same with a woman who is a CEO of a company. Like if she's single, I got something she wants and I'm going to show it to her in the best way. And their mentality was just so different. But the thing that will work with you and translate the best is the honesty factor. So they always brought it up. So they say, no, man, I just got out of the pen. I'm a liar. I'm a cheat. I'm a thief. I do all these things. And now I might say the wrong things because you're a beautiful woman. I get nervous in front of you. And they'd say that. They'd say those points of intent to them. They'd say those statements. And the woman would automatically think, and I've had this so much even happen with myself on a different level. They think like, I probably shouldn't be talking to this guy, but I'm intrigued. In fact, this is an interesting thing because when I remember I was at a dinner table with my friend in San Francisco. I was on a road trip with this girl that I'd met. I just met her, right? We decided to go on a road trip. Didn't even have sex. Well, I mean, we did by the time we got to my friend's house, but I met her in LA and it was like, well, I got a week. You got a week. Let's go on a trip. And so we went on that road trip. And basically, I told her that I'm like, oh no, man, I'm a dating coach and have a bunch of addiction problems and, sexual addiction problems, have all these like fucked up relationships. And this girl, was, God, she was such an annoying fucking chick. And as soon as the road trip started and we had sex, it was like, oh, this was a bad idea because then I'm trapped in a car with her and just took away from the fun. But we drove basically from like Eureka, California, back to LA in a day just because like I was done. But on going up, when we were just getting started, right before the road trip started, before we agreed on it, before any of this stuff, I told her all those things, right? I told her all those things. It's like, no, man, struggling with this in my life and I have a bunch of bad relationships. I can't make stuff work. But man, you're amazing. I can't believe this. And this girl, she had an amazing job. She owned a place in Los Angeles. She owned a home in Los Angeles. She owned a home in Chicago. And she had a lot of cool stuff. And all her and her friends, she was actually friends. She was a friend of a friend who is a model. All they did the whole time I was there was bitch about how being single in LA when you're an attractive woman sucks. So to me, it's like, man, there's like 4 of you and one of them's my friend and that I've known forever. So not going to go for her. I'm going to go for the other one. So we go on this trip. And I remember we were sitting in San Francisco. So we'd already started having sex and all that stuff. And he goes, man, because he thought she was really hot. It was like exactly her type. And he goes, man, do you have a twin? And she actually did have a twin. And she's like, I do, but she's way different than me. And da 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 da. And he's like, so how did you guys meet? Because you're like this, like she was a software engineer. She was just really, really sharp woman. Right. And she was like, well, I mean, like Steve said this, and the first thing that he said was this. And it was like some weird, shocking, fucked up thing. And he said to her, he's like, shocking, but intriguing. And she's like, exactly. All right. Now, not saying that was actually what worked, but the thing is there was something that set her off that was like, oh my God, this was too much. I probably shouldn't talk to this guy. Maybe I shouldn't talk. Maybe I should, but I'm strangely attracted to him. And that part is the for real part. And that's what you need to know. Now let's translate that down into your life, because most likely you don't have the same issues I had, or you're not an ex-con, or maybe you are, and you should listen to this and perhaps do this. Here's the thing. I presented myself and my intention and my want and desire, even chasing, right? Because I wanted to, like, this girl was attractive. And she had a lot of good stuff about her. As soon as I got to know her, I didn't like it, but she had a lot of good stuff about her. I chase that shit. I want that shit. All right. So I go for it. That's super important. All right. And when I go for it, I hit hard. And man, I hate to say it, women get no attention from men where they're hitting hard, where men are actually giving them what they want. And when you can do that, that's the secret. But the dudes who are ex-cons, the dudes who are, and it's not all, but the dudes who are like so pent up with desperation, who want women, who haven't had a woman in 16 years or whatever it is, they'll go for it, man. They'll go for it. The guys who may have some issues, or let's say you have an STD. One of the things is like if you have an STD and you bring it up, Jesus Christ, man. I was talking with well, I won't say his name, but another TSL member about this. And I was like, man, if you just meet a girl, let's say you're having dinner and you're eating or something, and this got all misinterpreted on the Austin Men's Development Board. There's too many people that, and like, if you don't know, you don't know. But you got to learn. You got to learn. You got to be treated like you got to learn, because if you don't, you're just going to sit on the sidelines and ask fucking dumb questions and all sort of stuff. But he basically was like, oh, so if I'll get to it later. But the fact of the matter is like, God, man, because my girlfriend, when I was, 18 years old, she got raped and kidnapped. She got a bunch of STDs. I got them. And so when I started hooking up with women, I didn't hook up with them for 3 years. When I did, I remember this girl was talking to me. Actually, it was the only girl that I hooked up with in that period of time, because I was so like still sexually traumatized. But I felt so guilty and so bad. She was just hanging out with me, and my friend was like, "Hey, so and so, I think she likes you." And I was just like, and thank God I did this, man. Like I did it in the most bitch ass way, and I didn't get it at this point. But I was like, oh well, you know, like my girlfriend had gotten raped, and I got like, you know, this and that and these things from her, and whatever. And she's like, why are you telling me this? Like, this was like, we didn't even go on a date yet. I hadn't even gotten her number, but I just felt so bad. And I knew that there was a potential for it, that I hid it from it. And man, that pushed her along to start like pursuing me more. Well, not pursue me more, right? Because it was probably like, oh man, there's some like doubt here. But I put sex on the table and didn't even know it. I put it on the table, and then she was like, oh shit, sex is on the table. I can feel more comfortable in this way. So then the guilt and shame continues. Break up with her after a 2-year relationship or something like that, man. It's crazy, man. And then I moved back to California. I was living in Hawaii at that time. And then this other girl started dating her. And she's a virgin. And so I told her, I was like, just as a friend, she said, why are you telling me this? Like, I don't want to be with you. Like, we're just friends. Literally. And this is where I did get it. Literally the next day, we're hooking up. The next day, we are hooking up. And then from then on, I just brought it up because you kind of have to, right? And then the interesting thing is like, this dude on the board is like, so if you say to a girl you're contagious, she'll fuck you. No. But if you are open and honest about disadvantages that you have in your life, it's not only attractive, it might set off some alarms, but if you're proud of it, man, there's interest and intrigue. You at least know how to stand up for yourself. You at least know how to be yourself. And that's a lot more than the motherfucker with the fancy car and all that other stuff, even though those things fucking help him plenty, man. But if you don't have that, you know, man, there's not a lot of guys who have that sort of fortitude to bring it forward. Now, during sex or right before sex, I mean, Jesus Christ, like, you know, that's a different mind, and it's very hard to make a decision. If there's true danger, like you're like, if you have sex with me, you will get hepatitis C. If you say that, which actually it doesn't really work that way because it's blood to blood. You'd have to have a open wound on your dick and an open wound on her pussy. At least I think, man, whatever. Don't take my word for it. But like, if you said that, like, you're going to get it, then of course they're going to say no. Of course. But man, I have plenty of friends that have Hep C, that have HIV, that are very honest with their partners and take the precautionary measures to not get those diseases. And they have an active sex life. Now, there's probably a lot of people who reject them for that. There's probably a lot of people who will say something like they bring it up because there's so much stigma, especially around like HIV or something. And they'll fucking like, you know, shit. They'll think about it. But if they're in the act of sex and in the heat of the moment, it's the worst fucking time to bring it up, man. Don't do it. Like, bring it up beforehand, because that person really can't make a decision. And most likely, if they can get the inkling of safety, they'll do it, and then they'll feel all fucking paranoid about it. But so that's why this happens. That sort of honesty and that directness is very, very important. So here's one of the things that is broken down here. So you might be going like, well, how can I be honest about it? Well, the whole point of the Instant Connection course, and of course, this is just one of the videos. It's one of the 4 videos that is on here, is all here so that you can easily do something. You can open and talk to people and all that sort of stuff, but you can also be yourself. So in order to be yourself, it has to be a form of communication that is customizable. All right. And this will show you how to do it. And again, I'm making these videos because I want you to do it. I want you to be able to be coached through it. I want you to be able to do what is on the PDFs, the videos, and go out in the public and change your life with it, because you can. All right. So we're basically looking to get some very, very simple stuff. All right. Some very, very simple metrics in terms of how you get into a conversation and be able to get certain interactions here. But here, we're just asking a simple question. Hey, I have a question for you, and I don't want to be offended, or I don't want you to be offended, but are you single or in a relationship? All right. So this is a tactical question, but it can go into your personal views of what a relationship is, or what is the value of a relationship, or what is the meaning of a relationship, and what will help you in those sorts of ways. And so let's say you're a guy that doesn't have a job, right? The very common thing, you're out of work, or you're in a shitty job, it's a transitionary job, whatever it is, but you think you can't bring it up. All right. If you can start to talk to somebody, and this is an easy question. Again, if you have social anxiety, you ain't going to be starting off with this question. That's fine. You have to get to a point where you can normally socialize. And you can just very, very simply go like, hey, I have a question for you, but you might not want to answer this. It's not meant to be offensive or anything, but like, are you single or are you in a relationship? And she says, I'm single, or she says, I'm married, or she says, I'm in a relationship, whatever it is. That doesn't matter. You should start getting good at voicing and projecting yourself. All right. Because if you can't normally assert yourself in a normal conversation, how the fuck do you expect to assert yourself in a conversation where sex is on the line, where you have to be naked in front of somebody, where they're going to see sides of you that you just can't show in a social way, right? Man, how are you going to be able to do that? So you got to be able to do it. You have to get there, right? So it's like, hey, I have a question for you. You're single in a relationship. And she says whatever she says. Now, let's say you don't have a job. Very easily customize this. All right. Let's explain the situation, and let's share that situation in a direction that we want. So we're going to say, well, look, like right now I'm in between jobs, and I think it's so interesting because the whole dating game is all about what you have and seeing stuff on the surface, especially with like online stuff now. And, men and women are both looking at these superficial things, but the things that I value in a relationship are much different. All right. So there I stated the situation, and I'm guiding it. The things that I value in a relationship, perhaps the conversation that I want to have with you, have much more to do with just those things. Let's say you have an STD. Now, with somebody that you don't know, it might be insulting just to bring some of this stuff up. But let's say, typical conversation from one of my ex-con friends that they'd have with a girl. They see a girl, oh yeah, we're talking, whatever, they're having whatever conversation, low-level conversation. Maybe they got a little bit further than just the opener. Well, probably, but they're within the first 2 minutes. And they'll just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to ask you a question. Are you single? Are you in a relationship or whatever? And they say whatever they are. I'm married. I'm in a relationship. Let's say they say those things. The ex-con guy would go like, look, I'm just going to say something. You might think this is weird, but I just got out of prison. I did some fucked up things in my past, and it was stupid. And it had to do with violent crimes. And I know you can think whatever, but you're just a beautiful person. And for a guy that has been thinking about meeting a beautiful person for 5 years and having all my privileges taken away, like, how can a man not recognize that? So I'm just saying that because you probably don't hear that enough. Drop it, go on to whatever conversation. Man, that's how they would talk, right? That's what they would say. Even if she was in a relationship or was married or whatever. And that doesn't mean that he's trying to hit on her, that she has to have sex with him or whatever. They might have a little bit of a different mentality towards that. But they might be trying to exploit something. And hey, man, at least they're going for it, But it's that sort of fortitude that's coming from it. So what we want to think of is that we can be very honest in our conversations. We're just kind of scratching the surface of this, and I don't want this video to go on like too long because I want you guys to use it, and I want you guys to watch this because this actually tells you, look, you're going to get 3 replies to any sort of question or qualifier that you're going to put out there to a woman that has any meaning. You're going to get an answer, you're going to get confusion, or you're going to get defiance. And here's how you deal with them, right? And you might be thinking this is too complex. Like everybody's like, I love it when people come up to me and they're like, Steve, I really like you, but I went with so-and-so as a coach because they're the most technical. They're for technical. I'm like, really? Because I know them and they're not. They just kind of say they are, but this is like a really big technical maps, and so much to the point where it might even be confusing for you. But here's the thing, as you look at this and you're like, oh my God, Steve's giving all these variables of what well exactly happened. This is like what so many guys ask for in a conversation, but it's really easy. It's super easy. There's 3 variables. There's 1 to 2 different responses to each of those variables, and you're going to get it every time. So what if you went and got in your car and were in traffic, and the person in front of you was only going to do 1 to 3 things? You'd very easily be able to steer around that or prepare to do what you needed to do for that. What happened if you showed up for work and you went in front of a client, and let's say you had to sell them on something, or let's say you had to perform a certain task? If you knew you were going to get only 3 variables, it would be very easy to become excellent at that job. So in conversations, you're generally going to get these 3 variables. Going to happen a lot. You're going to get 1 to 2 variations of that, maybe even 3, but it stops there, because once you accomplish that, then you get into rapport. You're a clean slate, and then you start off your whole new set of variables. It's anyway. I know I'm talking about a lot of stuff, but it's broken down to you here in this course. I mean, that you can get right now. That just, I understand if you're on TSL Online, you're working on that, finish that, but you can get the information of what will happen. So definitely do that. And it's all based around being yourself and who you are. And man, if you have something which is uncomfortable or uneasy about yourself, don't be afraid to show it, because in order to show it, that proves you're somebody that has at least some sort of pride and is willing to be themselves. And that's a lot more than what most men can show out there, even if they have a lot of the things that society says make them good with women. So take that to the bank and go with it. And hopefully this was helpful to you. And check out all the stuff on the cool membership site. Later.